Welcome everyone to our next edition of Mountaineer Farm Talk. My name is JJ Barrett. I'm the Agriculture Extension Agent in Wood County for West Virginia University. Of course, I have with us my co-host with the most, Evan Wilson. Evan, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, JJ. Great Friday going into Labor Day weekend down here in Wayne County this morning. It's going to be a good weekend, I think.
And also have our other co-host, Brandy Brabham. How are you today, Brandy?
Doing really good, JJ.
Good. And our special guest today is Danny Townsend from the Townsend Sorghum Mill over in Jeffersonville, Kentucky. Danny, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Good morning, everybody.
Good. We really appreciate you taking time. I know that it's about harvest time for sorghum, so I appreciate you coming on the program here this morning. Real quick, we are going to do our commodity minute. I've got our market wrap up for commodities. This is with Ohio Northern Grain Co-op. Corn this week is $6.92. Soybeans are $14.63, and wheat is $7.75 a bushel. At the Jackson County Regional Livestock, they sold 1,618 head last week. Steer calves from 500 to 600 pounds were $1.83 to $2.02. And heifers were $1.52 to $1.76. So feeder cattle prices are strong. Slaughter cows were 64 to 96. Slaughter bulls were 94 to $1.39, and bred cows were 9.25 to 12.50. And cow calf pairs went for a range of 1,200 to 1,650. So that's doing pretty good for slaughter cattle. Okay, Danny, if you would tell us a little bit about the history of the Townsend farm there in Jeffersonville.
Okay, we live here in Jeffersonville, and my great grandfather came in this area here in Jeffersonville in the late 1890s, and bought a pretty good sized farm here, and they made sorghum. So it's kind of been a hand me down tradition, but I don't really look at it as a tradition. I just look at it as a way to make money. It's a crop. But our family, they say I'm the fifth generation, and after we've been growing sorghum for well over 100 years in our family, and it's I don't think we've missed a year. I haven't missed a year making sorghum or being around the sorghum mill since I was 3 years old, other than a couple of years I was in the service. So it's something we look forward to, and it is a lot of work, but we're still surviving.
Yeah, and I was reading somewhere that Kentucky is kind of leads the United States in sweet sorghum production. So are there a lot of other farms in around your area and Kentucky as a whole that produce sweet sorghum?
Yes, Kentucky always has been and still is one of the leading states in producing sweet sorghum syrup. Sweet sorghum syrup is kind of a southeastern United States thing, more than out west or up north or something. But it seems like it's kind of in this area here. No, it used to be 50 years ago there was cane mills scattered all over the country. Every farm had a little mill, or 3 or 4 farmers to get together and make their syrup. But now they've kind of died off, and as the gentleman was saying earlier, it's labor intense, and some of the equipment is kind of hard to come by. You have to kind of construct your own stuff. So there's not near as many, and the ones there's a few hobby ones that's getting in it, and the ones that's in it actually for production, they grow 20, 30 acres now. So it has changed quite a bit, but there's some interest, a lot of interest in it. A lot of young people is starting to get back in it, hunt for equipment and seek information, and so we hope it survives for another couple hundred years.
Good. Maybe we'll start back from the basics. What people sometimes mislabel, what's the difference between sorghum they grow for grain, and I know that some farmers in my area, they grow the sorghum Sudan cross. They cut it for hay and wrap it or chop it for silage. What's the difference between those and the sweet sorghum?
Okay, there's basically 3 types of sorghum. You have your milo or your grain sorghum, which is produced just strictly for the grain. And then you have what you call a Sudan or forage sorghum, which grows big and tall and has a lot of leafy vegetables, a lot of tons per acre. And then you have sweet sorghum. Sweet sorghum is the only one that has sweet juice in the stalk that you can make syrup out of. It grows anywhere from 10 to 12 feet tall. It does have a head on top of it, and you can use that for seed to say for you produce your seed and stuff. But in the production of the syrup, well, then you remove those seed heads and you squeeze the sweet juice. The sweet juice, it's kind of sugar. It runs. We measure the sugar on the refractometer, and most of the time it runs anywhere from 15 to 20. The average would be like 16 to 18 or something like that. So, given that sweet juice, it would take about 8 gallons of juice to make 1 gallon of finished syrup. So the sweet sorghum is the only one that they use to make syrup out of.
So you're saying it takes 8 gallons of the juice from the sorghum to get 1 gallon of the sweet syrup.
That's pretty much on average. It'll take anywhere from 6 to 10, but 8 to 9 is about the average. Depends on how sweet the juice is, kind of the weather. If you have a lot of wet weather come in and that stalk pulls up a lot of water out of the ground, well then of course that's going to lower the sugar content. So we want to dry fall to where we can get rid of some of that water. We don't have to boil it out; it comes out natural.
Right. And I guess tell the audience what you said, that the harvest is coming up here pretty quick and then it'll last until it frosts, basically.
Yeah, it kind of depends, on what part of the country you're in and then what variety of sorghum that you grow. We actually cut some yesterday, and our sugar right now on our early variety, Sugar Drip, is running about 17, which is really good for this time of year and what it is. So it's and then Sugar Drip, we planted it in the middle of May, so it's about a 105-day crop variety, and it's right on schedule. And then we have Dale that's putting out seed head that's not ready yet. So we start with an early variety, and then we go to mid-season variety, and then we have late varieties. Most sorghum, it's anywhere from about 100, 105 days to up as long as 135 or 40. Yeah, and it's labor intense. It takes a long time to make a lot of sorghum. The labor's it's intense, and you can't hardly get a lot anymore. So we don't get in a big hurry, but it is getting started, and we hope for a late freeze.
Good. I guess what your for Townsend Farms, what other crops do you guys grow?
Well, we grow several varieties of vegetables. We sell to our couple local farmers markets here. We grow tomatoes, sweet corn, beans, and potatoes. Just the basic vegetables, and then we also grow some corn and soybeans where we can rotate our sorghum in and out. We like to go behind soybeans if we can. So, but we don't raise a whole lot, but we raise maybe 100 acres or so of corn and soybeans combined, and we raise about 40 acres of the sweet sorghum syrup, and then we raise about another 15 probably in vegetables.
Wow, 15 acres of vegetables is quite a bit of work. Isn't that right, Brandy?
Oh, yes.
Evan, do we have any other questions from the audience yet?
I'm not seeing in the chat or on Facebook yet.
Okay. Danny, tell us a little bit about if our audience doesn't know as far as what was the traditional, until recently, the traditional method of the old style method of harvesting the sweet sorghum and then making the syrup.
Okay, well, we still do an old fashioned festival the way they used to do it like 100 years, and I pretty much grew up in the old fashioned method or what it was. But you plant your cane, and some of them you could do it by hand, or they had the 2-row horse boat set of the planters, and you would plant about one seed every 6 inches, and then the rows about 40, 42 inches apart to where you could cultivate it. And like I said, it took anywhere from 100 and 130 days to grow the crop. Keep it real clean. You'd have to do a lot of cultivating to keep the weeds and stuff out. There was no chemicals or anything that you could put on it back then, and it was pretty much a labor intensive crop. So when the sorghum started to get the seed heads in the top of the plant would start to go into a bloom, and it would go into a milk stage, and then from there it would go into a dough stage. And then everybody had their own opinion about when the sorghum was ripe or something, and they didn't have any instruments. They just used it pretty much by taste. When it got rid of what they called the grassy taste, it had a green type taste. And when it got, they would cut it, and they used machetes or corn knives. Back then, they had a big wide corn knife, and they would go through and they would cut it about 3-4 inches off the ground, and they would lay it in small piles crossways of the row. So the leaves would dry and they wouldn't get too much moisture down in there. And then they would come back and with their sleds or wagons or whatever, and they would lay it crossways of the wagons. And then they would haul it to what we called the mill or the press. And it was a big three roller press. And most of them back then was vertical, and they was pulled by animals, either horses or mules. And they would go around in a circle and turn those rollers, and somebody would sit there and insert those stalks of cane in the mill, and then it would squeeze the juice out, and the juice would go. Most time it would be filtered through some kind of a burlap bag or some kind of a strainer, and then from there they would go into what we always used and used around this area was evaporator. Evaporator was it was about 48 inches wide and about 12 feet long, and divided into what we call bars, which was the dividers in the pan about every 6 inches. And you put the juice in one end, and then the far light would start giving off the impurities, the green. So you would, and most times, everybody always used wood. They used like good hardwood. And the season that they cut in the spring and stuff, and they would fire it with wood. And then as the juice started to boil, it would give off impurities, the green, like in making jams and jellies. And you would have to really keep that skimmed off. You would have to get rid of all those good, those green impurities, skimming and stuff. That's what really made good syrup. And then from there down the pan, like it would just, keep it boiling until it got to, what we call the finishing. And the maker where it was, he was the one that determined when it was ready to what we call pull it off, or pull the plug and then let the sorghum out. And they had several different methods. They call it snake eyes and all this kind of different 4 or 5 different terms that they use. But they would put a little syrup in a paddle and hold it up and see how it strained down and see how thick it was. And some of them would actually put a little bit of they'd see how it was boiling, and they'd put a little bit over in the pie pan or something, let it cool and see how thick it was, and then they'd kind of remember what it looked like the next time. But then, and they would, they would strain it through some kind of a muslin or cheesecloth or something, and in milk cans, or a lot of times in lard cans or any kind of vessels they had, to hold the syrup. And it needed to cool as quick as you got it out of that pan. It needed to cool down, or it would really turn dark. And then from there, they would put it to, back then they had what we called the buckets. They had a number 5 buckets, which they called a half a gallon, and they had the number 10, which held gallons. And they would put the syrup in buckets, and that was the way it was basically sold. We didn't start selling glass jars till probably mid 70s or something before we get it. Start putting it in glass jars.
Huh. So Danny, the people that bought it actually would just buy it in buckets, and then they'd put it in jars themselves, or how did they store it?
No, it had lids on, kind of similar to paint buckets, but these had an interior. They were actually syrup buckets. They was made for food grade. They were food grade syrup buckets, kind of like a lard can or something like that, except smaller. These were, okay. They was real sturdy, and those lids was kind of hard to get on. But no, they could, and maybe they did put it, but it required no refrigeration or anything. But most of them just, they would take out what they wanted, and some of them had the syrup things that you put on tables for syrup. They'd put it in that, or I don't know what they was going to do with it. And a lot of families back then, they would buy the whole lard can full. The lard cans, you could buy them at the store and stuff, and they'd buy a lard can or two to last them all year, last them all winter.
Huh. So it was kind of an art, I guess. The person that was in charge that knew when the finish was, how did they? Because I mean, now they have your refractometer with you can tell with the sugar content, but it must have been quite an art to figure out when that was ready to the thickness and the sweetness of it to finish it off.
And a lot of people called it art. I always called it guesswork. So he had them all fooled. He didn't know, but he just got there and pulled it off.
Guesswork.
He didn't have to go to the field and cut canes. So but anyway, yeah, they call it art. So I guess in some ways it is. It is pretty kind of an art to have that pan set right. Now that's the main thing is to get your evaporator, your furnace, that what we call the furnace, the thing the pan sets on that we fire with wood, is to get that set right. If you don't have that pan set right, you're not gonna make good syrup at all. You need to get that, and that was the art, is getting everything all fixed together and know how it worked and stuff, and know how much juice you had. You had to regulate your fire accordingly. You couldn't fire it too heavy. I mean, it was back then it was, I would say it was quite an art.
Now, I guess explain the difference. You have kind of a state-of-the-art production facility. Do you, instead of using wood, I know that a lot of the maple syrup people still use wood to fire their evaporator. Does yours run on natural gas or propane or wood?
Well, I still like to cook with wood, and I've got a 4-vent backer barn that's plumb full of wood that we've been splitting stuff. I keep afraid that something may happen, electric may go off. But I always like to cook a little bit different from my dad, and he always told me I like to run a low pan, what we call a low pan, to where it was you didn't have the juice very thick in it, and it boiled a whole lot faster, but you really had to stay on top of it. He said you're trying to fry it instead of boil it. He said, boy, you'll never be able to make sorghum. I said, no disrespect to a man, if I have to make like you do, I never want to make sorghum. So we've changed the whole lot drastically. We've changed it a whole lot drastically. So now we actually, and I've gone through wood, natural gas, propane gas, and now we have a natural gas fired steam boiler. That's a Cadillac way to make the sorghum. So we have a 100 horsepower steam boiler, which gives us about 3.5 million BTUs. And I just got it fired up this morning to make sure everything worked all right. And it got up to temperature. We run about 110 pound pressure on our boiler. And then, of course, we still squeeze it pretty much the same way, a little bit different harvest. But as I told you before, the skimmings would come off just as it started boiling in the pan. Well, we've actually made a separate process of that. We put about 1,000 gallons of juice in, and we heat it to about 170 degrees and let it sit there for about 2 hours. 90% of those green skimmings will come to the top. And then we pull the juice off about 1 inch from the bottom. I wish Daddy could see this now, because I'll tell you what, we wore out wrists, elbows, and shoulders is doing skimming. So this releases a lot of it. So, and then from there it goes into, we have, my first pan is 16 feet long and 7 feet wide, and 4 feet of it is actually heated with the steam. So when I start the juice on the pan, I turn the steam on, and it immediately, I mean, it's not like wood trying to catch up and get a fire. When you put that 110 pound steam on that pan, it starts to boil immediately. And it runs the length of that 16-foot pan. And all the time, we got big fans that pulls the steam out, because there's a lot of steam. And it pulls the steam off. And then from there, it goes into another 8-foot pan. It's what we call a finishing pan, also steam heated. And then, but I mean, man, this thing is beautiful. And we cook it. We measure on the refractometer, but we've got, with the refractometer and our thermometers, we've got a digital thermometer with, it's got a stainless steel probe that we put in the pan. And my magic number is 235 degrees. 233, I got to back off a little bit because it's just about too thick. So anywhere about 233 to 235 degrees. That's the magic number. And then most of the time this thing runs so good, I can finish 25 gallons of syrup in an hour. I can run 200 gallons of juice through that thing in an hour. And and when from there, when it comes out of the pan, it comes out at 235 degrees. We drop the temperature. We have a cooling tray that's cold water is running in under, coming from a milk tank outside, piped in, and it runs under the cooling tray. And within 15 seconds, we drop that temperature to 150 degrees. You've got to get that heat out of it. As I mentioned before, you had to cool it down to maintain the color and the flavor of the syrup. So that's some things that we've done, over the years and stuff. And I just wish the rest of the family could see this, what we've got now.
And it sounds amazing that you really using some good technology, some newer methods to making the sorghum. Let's switch gears a minute. You were saying anywhere from about 105 to 130 days for your growing season for the sweet sorghum. About how how heavy of how much do you plant per acre as far as pounds per acre? How part wide are the rows, and how much fertilizer do you need for sweet sorghum?
Okay. Most generally, the smallest variety of seed is one called Dale. It has about 32,000 seed at the pound. And then the biggest one is probably the M81E, which has about 25,000 seed at the pound. And if you do the math, it's less than 2 pounds, less than $20 an acre. You can plant the sorghum, and we usually plant one seed every 4 inches in the row, with the rows of 40 inches. That's pretty much a standard. You can widen them out if you want to, but I don't like to get too much narrow because you want the sunshine to come in and shine on those leaves. That's what makes you sugar. Those leaves has to be exposed. If you get it too tight a canopy, then that's my personal opinion. I don't think you can get all the sugar that you can. And if you plant one seed over 6 inches, 40-inch rows, it takes 26,400 seeds. So if you actually put the seed in there, you can plant less than an acre. And a lot of people plant too thick. I'd rather have one nice big stalk as to have 3 or 4 little small ones. Don't plant this sorghum too thick. Give it time to grow and right. As far as fertilizer is concerned, a couple of 100 pounds of triple 19. Sometimes I use triple 19, but a lot of times I use like 5-20-20. We want the P and K, but we don't want too much nitrogen. We don't want a dark green lush plant. The juice doesn't get as sweet because you got all that foliage and all that green stuff. So, but we found out over the years that we normally, and sometimes, like I said, I use maybe 1 out of 5 years I'll use triple 19, and most time I just use like 5-20-20. It may be 200 pounds an acre. Sorghum is it doesn't require a whole lot of nutrients, nitrogen. We're not worried about making the seed in the top. All we want is that sweet juice. That's what we want. The plant size, yeah, it will grow bigger if you put more fertilizer on it, but you can get too much. But a lot of times the plant doesn't need that much, and it is a camel crop. It doesn't require near as much water as corn or soybeans or anything. It can stay dry, for a while and get some water, and it will still grow. But sweet sorghum actually originated from Africa. They didn't bring it to the United States in the 1880s or something, early 1850s, I think it was. But it's not a hard crop to grow. But up until a few years ago, we didn't have any chemical weed control. Am I getting out of line? Are we all right?
No, we're fine. Yeah, we'll
JJ,
get into the. Oh, go ahead there, Evan.
we do have a question in the chat from Lisa Jones in our small farm center out of Morgantown. She asked, "Can you chew on sorghum?" She had raw sugar cane for the first time this summer, and some folks chew on the cane. She wondered if sorghum is the Appalachian version of sugar cane.
Oh, most definitely. Yes, yeah. There's a lot of them, and as kids and stuff. I mean, we did that as kids around the cane mill. But kind of, you were talking about the sugar cane. Sugar cane is a subtropical plant. We can't grow it this far north, so our answer to sugar cane would be the sorghum cane. And yeah, you can squeeze it, but be careful whenever you're eating it, because that rind on the outside of that is almost like a knife. It will get as kids, what we would do, if joints, you could break it off at a joint and then take your knife and kind of peel that off the rind off the outside, and then cut your little piece of that pith inside and put it in your mouth and chew it, and then get the sweet juice out of it, and then spit the pith out. Oh yeah, it's most definitely, yeah. I mean, it's good and sweet, not comparable to apple juice, I guess, or something like that. So yeah, most definitely.
Good to hear. You were starting to get into the herbicide stuff. Is there certain weeds or disease pressures you see more so down your area, or Rodney may weigh into this with problems we have up here in our neck of the woods with our
What do you mean? You
sorghum
talking about weeds, grass, or something?
Yes, sir.
Weeds or grass? Well, of course, I'm sure y'all have the same one that we have. One of the worst ones is nothing but Johnson grass, and ain't nothing kill that blasted stuff. If we kill Johnson grass, we're going to kill our sorghum also. So, but there are some chemicals that you use now cleared. But I used Bicep 2 Magnum, which is a combination of atrazine and dual. Atrazine does a pretty good job on the broadleaves, and dual does a good job on the grass. But in order to use the dual metachlorine, you have to have a seed safener, because dual is meant to kill the grass. Sorghum being a grass, you could kill it or hurt it real bad. So there is a chemical that you can put on it, a seed safener. It's called Concept. You can treat the seed, and then you can spray it with dual or bicep, and it doesn't hurt the seed. It will still germinate and come out. And I was the first one that actually put that on seed and offered it for sale in the United States. Did that several years ago. It took a long time for me to get that chemical and get it cleared and stuff. And yeah, a lot of small producers, they want to go organic. They don't want to use any chemicals, and it's just a whole lot of work cultivating. And then back when tobacco started being float plants, well, I got some of those trays, and I tried sweet sorghum in those float trays. Took me about 3 or 4 years to get it worked out right, the number of seeds and the number of cells and the spacing in the rows, and that works good. That's before we got these chemicals, and that really worked good because you take a live plant to the field, 8 or 10 inches tall, and transplant it like we do tobacco, and then you could, next week you go back and start cultivating, be way ahead of those guys. Sorghum grows awful slow. Whenever you plant it, it takes forever to get up there to 5 or 6 inches. Grass grows a whole lot faster, and if you're not careful, you'll be snowed under before that little plant gets out. So, but long as we got these chemicals and stuff, why we did transplant a little bit this year. Some of the trials, they have some seed that they call is supposed to be maybe aphid resistant, so we did transplant a little bit. But at one time we was transplanting about our whole crop. But yeah, and then sometimes, well, there's some stuff you can use that I'd rather not talk about on there, but there's some stuff that you can use that won't hurt the sorghum. Or we've tested it and there's no chemical carryover and stuff. So yeah, but it's just a good cultivating habit more than anything.
Yeah, Danny, tell us a bit more about the varieties that you sell there at Townsend Sorghum Mill, and what the difference is as far as the day length or some of the characteristics that make them a little bit different, and if they make different sweet sorghum.
Well, we're lucky here in Kentucky and then in West Virginia that we could grow probably about any variety that we have. But some people are not quite that fortunate. We got some producers in Wisconsin and Maine, and they got a whole lot shorter season, so they need something that's shorter maturity. The shortest one we have is a variety called Simon. It's about 95 days, and they grow it up north. Down here, it doesn't grow too awful big, but up there, it grows a whole lot different. And each part of the country has probably the variety that they like. I don't know. It's just been handed down or something like that. So, but we offer about I think I have about 9 or 10 different varieties that I'd offer for sale. Dale is probably the most popular throughout the Southeast United States. I sell probably more Dale than I do all the rest of it put together. And like I said, it grows. In fact, I won first place at Kentucky State Fair. It was 13 feet, 2.5 inches high, and that was back to the middle of August. But it does grow about big. It does produce a lot per acre. It has nice stalks. It's got a small seed head. It stands good. But when you get 13 feet, you got to watch out for that lodging. And that's why a lot of people, they like different varieties because lodging or blowing down, they like different varieties for that. So we offer, that would probably be the earliest. And then of course a sugar drip, and it's very comparable to, we have one that's called honey drip. And then when we got an orange, back in the day, they used to be 100 drips and 100 oranges. And some of these we really, I mean, that's the name that we got now, but it's probably might have been something else back in the past. But Dale, it come out of Meridian, Mississippi, the experimental station down there in the 1970, 71, I think. And then we have another one that's the M81E that I mentioned. That come out of Meridian, but M81 Meridian 1981E experimental. They was actually experimenting with that one for ethanol back in 81. Well, we got it and started making syrup out of it. It makes excellent syrup, and it would still be good for the energy too. And then we have one that's called Top 76.6, and it has a more of a whitish type seed. The outside rind on it is really tough. You have to have a good meal to squeeze it, but it stands good. But it's 135 days. And then University of Kentucky got to breeding some, and they've got what they call a Kentucky 08. It's really early, and then we've got a Kentucky 18 and 10. And let's see, what else do I grow? We got one that called it's called Umbrella, and a lot of them call it Williams or Umbrella or whatever. But the seed head is kind of inverted. It kind of looks like an umbrella when the seed heads get ripe. The way they kind of fall down. So, and then this year we're experimenting with some of that aphid resistant. We got three varieties of that out, so we're going to see if it actually is aphid resistant, and then also what kind of syrup it will make. And then if it does good, if it is resistant, makes good syrup, then we may offer that seed for sale. But I am licensed through the Kentucky regulatory on growing the seed and treating it and cleaning it. And everything has to be checked for germination, noxious weeds, and and all that kind of stuff. So, but I got into that strictly by accident. We started a national association, and people was having a hard time to getting seed and stuff. And I said, well, I can handle that, because that was my job as a kid. I'd have to go through the field and pick up the good seed, the best seed heads, and take them and put them in the loft of the barn. And then next spring when they dried out and stuff, well, old man make me take a washboard and a tub and go to the loft of the barn and what we call rub out some good cane seed to plant. So that's how I actually got started. One time I was doing 100 pounds a day, rubbing it out on the washboard, washing it through a tub, put it on the screen and dry it out for our seed. But I've kind of got away from that a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty labor-intensive process, making your own seeds or cleaning them anyways.
It's changed a little bit. We've got a thrasher now and a cleaner and stuff, so we got them that a little bit. So
good. Danny, how do you plant do you use like a sort of like a corn planter to plant the sorghum, or you got like a grain drill, or how do you plant?
Well, we used to have we used to see farm all tractor and a corn planter, but we had the sorghum plates, and it never did. And it's hard. This seed, like I said, it varies from 25,000 seed to 32,000 seed. So if you do varieties and stuff, it's hard to get those seeds through those plates and get it where you want it. Back in the day, they used to do the check planting and stuff, and they would actually plant it in hills. They would plant, maybe 3 or 4 seed in the hills 24 inches apart, which is excellent. It was super great. That's the way I was transplanting. But through the years and stuff, I wanted to try to get a little bit more uniform crop and stuff. And we actually have a Mattermac. It's a precision vegetable planter. It's got the plate. It pulls the vacuum on it. The plates rotate and turn. And it is precision. If you want to plant an inch deep or 3 3/8 inches between them, you can do it. You put the seed exactly where you want. But a lot of people are trying to do the other seeds, and some of them are having pretty good luck with them. The other vacuum or plateless planters and stuff. So, but it takes a little bit of skill to get those planters to plant the way you want it to. And but like I said, we have 2 of these, 2-row 3-point heads, and it's a vacuum planter, and it pulls a vacuum. The plates have holes in it, and they rotate, and the vacuum pulls the seed to that hole, and then we have what's called a singulator that when that plate rotates, I knock all the seed off except one, and then when the plate rotates on around, well, then the vacuum releases the seed, and it drop in the ground. Beautiful. It does a great job. Yeah, it's we've really got a good crop this year, and I thought the other day, it looked like it down. I checked the 10-foot strip of row, and they look like it every 4 inches over the plant.
Now, do you go in and burn that down, and then is that no-till, or do you have to cultivate the soil?
I do plow and disc, and I actually like to run and I know they say it packs the ground, all this kind of stuff, but I like to lightly run a tiller over top when I get ready to plant, just to I'll put the fertilizer in, and then I'll run that tiller just lightly over top of and it really gives a nice seed bed. This is small seed. I don't want to take any chance on getting it not coming up or something like that. But running that tiller over it makes that fine seed bed, and this planter, it really does a super good job. And then after I plant, this spray, Bicep 2 Magnum that I use, you can either pre-plant incorporate up to maybe, read the labels and stuff, maybe a couple of weeks, or you can plant pre-emerge. You have to make sure that you spray before anything germinates, because this chemical that you spray on there, if you spray it on too late, if you wait too late and those grass seeds germinate, you're not going to do any good. So I usually got the sprayer set in the end of the field. So when I plant, before I go to the house at night, I spray. I've been there and done that. Well, I'll spray tomorrow. We'll let it rain for a week, and then first thing you know, you can't find your cane. So, but that's the way we like to do it. But there's several different ways. You just have to use what you have on your farm, what's available, and what you can do with it.
Yeah, Danny, I want to go back. You were talking about some of your advice to other growers. Do you think a lot of growers, I guess as farmers, we always want to make sure that we get plenty of seed down? Do you think that's one of the big mistakes? People just plant that sorghum too thick?
Several of them do, but you won't do it but once. Whenever you got to go through there and try to thin this, when you thin that stuff out, pull it all out. When you thin it up in that little old plant, when the wind comes, it blows it all down. Like I said, you won't do it but once. But there's a lot of information out there on sweet sorghum. Like I said, we've actually got a national association, and then Kentucky is the only state that has a state association. And there's a lot of information out there. But when they call me, want to know how much. I said, listen, they want 50 pounds. I said, how much you gonna plant? Oh, we're gonna plant 3 or 4 acres. I said, my God, man, you got 50 pounds. That's enough to plant 25 acres, 30 acres. Oh, we didn't know. It was, the price. We thought it was going to be a whole lot higher, to plant per acre. And this is one of the cheapest crops that you can plant. Last year I sold the untreated seed for $8 a pound, and the treated seed for $10 a pound. It's going to have to go up a little bit this year. But what crop can you plant with the potential money-making crop is sorghum for $20 an acre?
Not many.
You can't plant.
Especially with all the new corn varieties are very expensive.
Oh yeah, my sweet corn.
Let me switch gears a little bit, talking about some of the trying to market the sorghum. What do you have a lot of repeat customers because they like it's a natural product, it's got more, the vitamin mineral content compared to cane sugar?
Oh yeah, with this, especially we repeat customers. Lord God, yeah, we've had customers that's been buying from us for, Lord God, a lot of years. But also, the younger generation, and a lot of them are looking for more healthy, the sugar substitutes. They don't want the processed sugar. They want something more natural, and that's part of it too. And just like. And then that's the way we promoted this. It's sweet, but it's really good. That's just like at the Kentucky State Fair we just finished up. We've been for over 30 years. We have been going to that fair and actually baking little biscuits, taking biscuits and cutting them 6 pieces, and putting a piece of biscuit on the spoon and putting sorghum on that biscuit and passing them out. We have been doing that for over 30 years, letting people know what sorghum tastes like, how you can eat it. We have cookbooks, we have recipes. And we also have the nutritional value. This is the most nutritional sweetener that you could eat. It's high in potassium, calcium, and iron. I mean, that's why we really, really promote that on. So, and even if you're anemic or you have, low iron in your blood or something like that, well, some doctors even recommend it. So, but we sell to a lot of individual repeats. We set up at Morgan County Sorghum Festival, and we actually did the demonstration of the mules and stuff like we used to do 150 years ago. And that's a big draw. People really like to see that. They want to know that mule making sorghum. Well, that mule never made any sorghum. It turns a meal that squeezes the juice. That mule never made any sorghum. But a lot of people like say, "Oh, I don't see a mule make sorghum." I said, "Not me. I don't." But now it's kind of switching lanes a little bit. But right now they're looking for, some people they're making drinks out of sorghum. We sell a lot of sorghum to Danville Wilderness Trail. They got a drink. It's called Harvest Rum, and then some breweries. We have some breweries here. They're looking at making beer out of sorghum.
Hmm.
And then, but don't forget that sorghum is probably the best crop on this planet to make ethanol. But it is a little bit more tedious and stuff. So, but you can use it. I mean, it's sugar. It's just basically sugar. I mean, it's flavored sugar like anything else. So, but it does have the high nutrition. It has the same calories, 62 calories per tablespoon, just like the honey or anything else. But it has all this nutritional stuff. And when you put it, a lot of people we send it to. We have some chefs down in Georgia. It's all over the place that tell you they're cooking with it. And some of the coffee, these drinks places, they put a sorghum, a little swirl of sorghum on top of it or something. So yeah, it has changed a whole lot. Mama's not making all them biscuits for breakfast like they used to, so they're not eating it fire, but they're cooking with it. Like I said, we got two cookbooks that's plumb full of the recipes that you can use sorghum for.
Yeah, Danny, on your website, what kind of packages can you get the sorghum? Is it in pints or quarts? What sizes do you sell?
Well, we got a little saying here on the farm. I'll sell you seed. I'll sell you stalks. I'll sell you juice. I'll sell you semi-syrup. I'll sell you the finished syrup. And we offer it in 8-ounce containers, or sometimes we put it in the little jugs of 3.4 ounces. Or we put it in 55-gallon drums, or you bring your tanker and we put it in your tank, small tanks. We put it, but we put it in whatever we can sell it in, whatever the customer. But just on our website, yeah, probably the pints and quarts are the biggest sellers. The half pints. That's what we list on, I think, on our website. And we have some little plastic decorative jugs. Those things are got high. I think they're like $1 and something a piece now, just for a little container. Well, glass has too, really. So, or you can order it in glass, 8, 16, 32 ounces. And we use the full measure whenever we say a quart. It's not a 28 quart; it's a 32-ounce quart. So, but yeah, well, it's not all the. This time of year is starting to pick up on our website and stuff, and we sell a lot of seed off our website and stuff. Orders coming in, but sorghum we sell some, but it's people out in California or New York somewhere, they don't have, but there's a lot of Kentuckians and West Virginians and scattered all over the United States, so they remember what sorghum looks like, so they got to have some. So
Right.
A chance to get some.
Rodney, do you have any questions for Danny? So you have a lot of experience in the growing sweet sorghum.
Yeah, I do. Danny, one of the things that I guess that labor intensive is when the old timers, and I don't know what your opinion is, that I'll ask you, stripping the leaves. Most of the older generation that helped me and did the cooking or so forth, there's no way you could talk them into milling cane, squeezing cane with the leaves on it. Do you strip all the leaves, or how do you handle that part of it?
I do not strip any leaves.
But
goodness. You got to realize what these people were talking about back in that day. They had that mule or horse to turning that mill. Mm-hmm. Whenever you put those stalks in there with those leaves on, you just about double the load. So they pulled those leaves off, and it might, when you run that raw juice, run that raw cane, the freshly cut on that pan, it might have made it more trouble skimmings or something. But we haven't, we haven't stripped any cane in 50 years.
Okay.
But when we cut that cane, either with a binder or by hand, and we still cut a lot by hand, we lay it crossways of the row where the air can get under it, and we leave it down I like to leave it for 3 or 4 days, especially if it's hot, that sun. We'll dry those leaves. I mean, it will dry them to where they burn. And then when we put it through that mill, we actually lose some juice because those dry leaves will absorb some of that juice. But instead of that mill going around, I've got a 100 horsepower diesel engine sitting there turning that meal. It don't care if it's got leaves or not, it's going to run. I mean, it squeezes the juice out. But now that is one of the things. So, and then all people ask, well, the taste, the taste of this, that. So I just said something out there and I said, well, taste of it and see what you think. They can't tell the difference. But there is some advantages, if you're a small producer or stuff like that, a squeeze. I'm not knocking squeezing. No, if you like to work, well, go up there and have at it. They knock them off in the field, or they'll, with paddles that they'll beat the leaves off with, or they'll bring them in and they'll stack it up. And then used to be they had a lot of women and stuff standing around mills, and I remember that as a child, them standing around and stripping the cane and stuff. But after a while, we figured out that there was ways around that. And somebody says, well, your cane's going to be dark, but with the way we cook it, especially now with this steam, the way we cook our sorghum, man, get on their website and Bluegrass and Backroads and watch that little video. Man, that's a beautiful sorghum coming out of that pan. I mean, it's like I said once before, I just wish my ancestors could see the way that sorghum's coming out of that pan now. But yeah, there's advantages, to stripping it. It just depends on the operation.
JJ, let me say, if I would, one more thing, then I'll be still. I think there's a great opportunity in West Virginia. If you notice what Danny said there, it sounds to me like they sell a product in all stages. And I think that's an opportunity in West Virginia, is to sell the cane, sell the unpressed, unmilled cane. Because what I found when I was in production, there was little, like communities would have some type of a little ag show for a day or two or whatever, and they had cane or sorghum making, but they didn't have anybody to raise the cane. And I think a lot of us in areas that we have the land for it, we have the equipment. I mean, I think there's definitely an opportunity to sell the raw cane. We sold a good bit of raw cane, and it was, we didn't have to go through the process of having the evaporator pans and all the presses and all that kind of stuff. And we had a pretty good business, different families, even families that have sorghum making once in a year to go back to the old way and so forth. And they're looking for the cane. And I think that producers in West Virginia even could, kind of capitalize on that.
Interesting. Thank you there, Rodney. So Danny, do you still have to harvest a lot of that by hand, the cane, or do you use a cut or some kind of a cutting mechanism or binder?
We do about everything, whatever the situation calls for, whatever the weather. If it blows it down, it's standing up. And right now, yesterday we was cutting with a corn binder. Those old corn binders, they do quite well, especially on the varieties like Sugar Drip. It doesn't grow too awful tall. I actually got a Haggy corn detosser that we go through and cut the heads off of 4 rows at a time while the cane is still standing. And then we can come back with that binder. And if it's working good and you've done a good job on weed control, you can cut it and put it, with a binder. That works pretty good. Or, sometimes we have to, if it blows down or leaning or something, I don't do a good job, everything else, well, then we have to cut it by hand. But the gentleman that was speaking before, he's talking about, what really works good is if you get one processing plant and have 5 or 6 growers grow it and bring it into that one processing plant and make it, and then they do it in shares. That's what they used to do it. They have people that made sorghum. They would move around the country and they'd move in and they'd make your acre or what it was, and then they'd keep their share and give you your share, and then they'd move on, make somebody else's, or they'd have 2 or 3 families around there bring it in. That's been done for 100 years or so. Yeah, that's a possibility. But my dream right now, I'm gonna try to go one step further. I love the steam heating, cooking sorghum. but the harvesting. I want a sugarcane harvester. So where like down south, they go through and they cut these machines will cut the heads off of it, cut the sorghum, and they call it in billets, like 8 or 10 inches, and then they put it in wagons and bring it through, and then run it on the conveyor line and run it through the mill. I've got the mill, I've got all the components. I'm just missing a sugarcane harvester. Now, if we can get a group of people, a sugarcane harvester, just do this like they do down in the sugarcane. I think they got the Everglades co-op down there's growing like 64,000 acres, and they got like 200 growers or something. They grow that, they go in and harvest it and bring it in, and then they, you can reach a whole lot bigger market. As of right now, there is no national wheat sorghum on the shelf. When you go to the Kroger store, it's going to be local. There is no national. At one time, we were in like almost 200 Kroger stores, but I backed off. I said, it's getting too much of the way. We was getting too big too fast. The opportunity may be there, but I had some concerns and stuff. And then at some points during our lifetime, we've had people come in and want to buy everything that we can make. Well, that's pretty good until they decide to leave, and then you've lost your customers. Then what do you do? I said, no, I'd rather have one customer to have 100, or I'd rather have 100 customers to have one. So if I lose one, then I haven't lost it all. So, but there is I think there is a lot of opportunities in sweet sorghum. I think, but we've been trying to get people to know what it is to taste, and if you've been to the Kentucky State Fair, well, you would have seen, oh, I had to come get my sorghum. Yeah, I've been doing this for years and years. So, but it is, I think there's some opportunities there in agriculture for people to do the sorghum.
Danny, do you see some surprises on their face when they taste the sorghum because maybe they're unfamiliar with that product, and they're really surprised of how good it is?
Well, the most reaction we get when you taste sorghum, they try to figure out what it tastes like. Well, this tastes like this. This tastes like, sweet potatoes. I said, it tastes like sorghum. What are you doing when you eat a potato chip? You don't figure out what it tries to taste like. They was trying to figure out what something else it tastes like. But a lot of them do. Every now and then, maybe 1 out of 100, they don't like it at all. But most of them, oh gosh, I didn't. This is not what I thought. It was going to be. This is sweet. I said, yeah, it's nutritious and delicious.
Yeah, I kind of use
a
same
lot of
with honey. You got to put butter on there first, and then put the sorghum on top of it.
Well, some of this sorghum is really good, and like I said, we put it on a biscuit, but a lot of them don't even want the biscuits. They just want the sorghum in the spoon, but that way you can taste just exactly what the sorghum tastes like. But we've been really fortunate, here on our farm and what we've done, and a little bit of it is up to us, but we don't have control of all of everything that's going on. So this year looked like we've got a good crop as of right now, and we're getting ready. I just turned the steam boiler on this morning and got it up to pressure to see how it was going to work. So I'll make sure that, and now we're cleaning up our we got a CLT. We got a building here that we use to cook in, and it's state and federally inspected, and that's what we're doing now. So we're washing everything up. It's actually called commercial kitchen, and somebody says, "Oh, I want what you got." I said, "Well, if you got 100 years and $1 million, you can have it." So that's about what it took us.
Yeah, it takes some time. It takes time to build a business.
But the way things are now, if you could set up a little process, that way you wouldn't need all that equipment like the guy was talking about. It was growing some, either sell it to them or let them make it on a hide or something like that. But it is a pretty good investment, especially the way things are now, is getting everything, where you can pass all the inspections, and you've got a lot of them. Everybody wants to try to tell you what to do, and that's good. They're just it's for safety, so they want to make sure that they keep the public safety and what you're getting. But one thing you got to realize about sorghum, it's just sugar. It's going to be really hard to try to hurt somebody because it's sugar.
We do have a question in the chat from Lisa again on the equipment side of things. Are there mobile processing units out there?
You can make them. I was fortunate enough 3 or 4 years ago that I'm in the possession of a bunch of meals, and they actually came from China. They wouldn't work. They call them sugar cane pressers or whatever, but they didn't work for sorghum. So I'm redoing them and offering some up for sale. Yeah, you can put some of these meals on trailers, hook them up to PTO, and take them to the field, and that's a good way to do it. You can put it out in the field, and that way, only thing you have to haul out is the juice. The stalks go right back on the field. You can turn them under, plant them under the field, which is an excellent way to do the stalks or bagasse or whatever you're doing them. So, now the old horse meals and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to hook one of those up. That's the vertical meal that it's got the sweet pole on top that the mule goes around in. Or you can take what we call the power meals that are horizontal, 3 rollers that and they're horizontal, they lay down, and you can turn them with flat belt or with electric motors, or I've got some that we can run with a PTO, and you can put those on trailers and pull them. So yeah, that's definitely a good way to do it.
And Rodney, the one you and Danny had at the farm museum, it was kind of portable, right?
The one that, well, I made one out of an old Massey Ferguson hay baler and a John Deere hay crimper. Cut it all down and mounted the crimper on the baler, and of course took a lot off the baler and all, and it runs by PTO. And to be just somebody that don't know a whole lot, it really works good. I'd always kind of dreamed of that, and my friends told me I was crazy, but it does work good. You can run a lot of cane through it. Of course, I don't have time.
It looks like we
Lost Rodney.
lost Rodney there. Real quick before we
To
wrap
me, it's
up
a
here,
lot. Huh?
There you are.
we
Here we go.
lost you there for a minute, Rodney.
Okay.
But we appreciate Danny. At this time of the program, we only got a couple minutes left. My dad always told me that there was 2 types of music, country and western. So we need to know who your favorite country music artist is.
I'm a bluegrass fan.
Oh, okay. Well, he's from Kentucky, of course. So who's your favorite performer?
Oh, anybody that can play a good banjo. I love a banjo. Anybody that can play a good banjo.
We figured you'd just say
I don't
Bill
have any
Monroe.
particular-
Ricky Skaggs.
Oh,
Ricky Skaggs. There you go.
they were
Definitely.
great. Yeah, they was. There's a lot of them. Oh, I like country, and some country western has kind of got out of hand. I like more of the old fashioned type stuff. Back was in the the 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm more that kind of than I am some of this newer country western. But yeah, and I do love. I love a blend. I love the old country folk art stuff.
Good. I love bluegrass myself. Today's throwback artist is B.J. Thomas. I don't know if anyone remembers, the old B.J. had the Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head was one of his big hits. I think it was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid movie, I believe. B.J. Okay, Evan, do we have any more questions from the audience before we wrap up?
Not that I see anywhere, but we have a good turnout. Looks like here the audience online on Zoom, and I'll get the recording up and uploaded and edited and stuff, and I'll send the link to the Townsend email as well on Facebook, so maybe they can share with their producers as well some information we gained here today.
Yeah, and real quick, Danny, how do any of the audience, or if someone wants to get a hold of you, give us maybe your contact information?
We have a website, and it's Townsend Sorghum, all one word, .com. You can get on our website. My email is Danny at Townsend Sorghum, all one word, TownsendSorghum.com. Or I'll even give them my cell phone number, 859-398-1428. Once again, 859-398-1428. We'll have sorghum for sale. I'll have seed next spring. You want some juice? You want some stalks? Bring some money and come on.
Okay. Well, once again, our special guest today was Danny Townsend from Townsend Sorghum Mill over in Jeffersonville, Kentucky. And we appreciate him coming on the program. So we hope everyone enjoys the Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next week. Real quick, Evan, do you have the list of our upcoming guests?
Oh, off the top of my head, no. I forget who we had for next week. You had
Hold on.
Okay.
It isn't Bob Gregory and Bria Gardens. Is that next? No, that's the 16th. So I can't remember who we have next
Oh,
week.
hold on
but
here. I
The
think
16th of September.
let me look up real quick. Okay, next week we have fall weed control for hay and pasture fields with Dr. Rakesh Chandran he's our weed specialist here at WVU. The 16th, we have Bob Gregory from Brea Gardens in Menora, West Virginia, with extending the garden season into fall. The 23rd, we have Dan Neenan with the farm safety awareness. He's from the National Education Center for Farm Safety. And then on the 30th, we have Dr. Daryl Peel from Oklahoma State talking about adding value to feeder calves. Like I said, and before we go, just want to remind everyone that programs and activities offered by West Virginia University Extension Service are available to all persons without regard to race, color, sex, disability, religion, age, veteran status, political beliefs, sexual orientation, marital, national origin, and marital or family status. So we are Mountaineer Farm Talk, and we hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll see you next week.